Hello, I'm James Izimoha. Welcome to Africa News, where we bring you the latest updates from across the African continent. Let's see your headlines. Gabon's ex-general Brice Oligui Nguema sworn in as president under constitutional rule. Togo shifts to a parliamentary system with Faria Gnassingbé holding top executive power. South African mother and two accomplices found guilty of child trafficking. Thank you for joining us. South Africa is calling on G20 nations to help unlock Africa's energy future through cooperation, investment, and fairness. The call came at the G20 Energy Transitions Working Group in Cape Town, where discussions on how to achieve cleaner power without derailing development were held. South Africa says the transition must be bold, but also realistic for countries still facing energy poverty.
At the G20 Energy Transitions Working Group in Cape Town, South Africa urged world powers to back a just and affordable shift to clean energy across Africa. Despite the continent holding vast natural wealth, around 600 million people across the continent still lack reliable access to electricity, according to the United Nations. With fossil fuels still dominant and access limited, leaders are pressing for an inclusive plan that doesn't leave Africa behind.
Important that we are able to manage this transition in a manner that takes into account our own domestic conditions. You need to balance that with the need to ensure that you don't stifle the ability of the economy to grow and get more and more people into employment, reskill people, ensure that there's upward socio-economic mobility of citizens of our respective countries. Financing is important of that infrastructure. Don't punish poor countries. Accept that the Western and more developed countries have got an obligation to help poor countries. So that's really how we fashion the conversation. And I'm confident that we're going to find each other.
In Africa, where we're trying to really expand our grid, expand our access, you can actually overlay expansion of access to expansion of producing molecules, so you can actually have the socio-economic benefits actually locally in those countries.
As climate goals tighten and demand rises, South Africa's push at the G20 reflects questions about energy justice and how to turn Africa's resources into real investment.
M23 rebels controlling parts of eastern Congo are now collecting taxes and appointing administrators as they attempt to run territories seized from the government. But with banks closed and food prices soaring, residents say daily life is becoming even harder.
The M23 rebel group, which has seized major eastern cities including Goma and Bukavu, is now imposing taxes to finance its operations and enforce control. The movement has introduced levies on everything from coltan exports to local market trade, sparking financial strain in regions already disrupted by conflict. Analysts say M23's ability to govern depends on whether it can stabilize daily life and the economy. But banks remain closed under Kinshasa's orders. Currency is scarce, and traders often travel hundreds of kilometers just to access cash. Traders say demand has collapsed, and everyday goods are piling up.
They can bring you a basket of lemons for 20,000 francs, about $6.80. But it will take more than 3 days before you can sell it all because the city is experiencing a major crisis. The banks are not operational. We are selling, but there are no buyers because there are fewer people in the city who can afford to buy. That's our current difficulty. We lay out the goods, but there are no customers.
The rebel leaders say their tax system is only temporary, but are warning they'll look for other options if the situation drags on.
In the face of this intransigence from Kinshasa, or this madness from Kinshasa, we are setting up a mechanism, and we have announced that if such a deadline is exceeded, we will find alternative solutions. But for now, people are operating through a purely mechanical, manual system. Taxes are being paid by hand and so on. But this must not last.
Les taxes sont payées à la main et ainsi de suite. Mais ça ne doit pas durer.
Despite controlling valuable mining zones and appointing governors, M23 remains isolated from formal financial networks. Without access to banking, trade, or international support, analysts warn the group's administrative ambitions may be unsustainable.
Gabon has officially returned to constitutional rule, with ex-General Brice Oligui Nguema sworn in as president. His swearing-in on May 3rd marks the formal end of a 19-month military-led transition. Nguema says he'll focus on reducing oil dependency by expanding agriculture, industry, and tourism. He's also vowed to build stronger democratic institutions and tackle widespread youth unemployment. The Constitutional Court validated his victory in late April after dismissing opposition challenges. His presidency now enters a new phase under civilian authority. Togo has officially shifted to a parliamentary system, with Faure Gnassingbé now holding the country's top executive role. The move follows sweeping constitutional reforms that opponents say help presidents retain power indefinitely.
86-year-old Jean-Lucien Kwasi Savi de Tove was unanimously elected as Togo's ceremonial president on Saturday. His appointment marks the symbolic start of the country's Fifth Republic, following the full adoption of a new constitution last year. Under the revised system, executive power has been transferred from the presidency to a new post, the President of the Council of Ministers. That position must be held by the parliamentary majority leader, currently Faure Gnassingbé, who has ruled Togo since 2005 after the death of his father. The change eliminates direct presidential elections, raising concerns among opposition groups that the ruling party is consolidating long-term power through legal reforms. Speaking during his swearing-in ceremony, Gnassingbé vowed to uphold the new constitution and serve the nation.
Conformément aux lois de la République,
We, for Esozimna Gnassingbé, President of the Council, designated according to the laws of the Republic, solemnly swear to respect and defend the Constitution that the Togolese Republic has freely given itself, to loyally and faithfully fulfill our mission as servants of the people, to commit ourselves to dedicating all our strength to the defense of the homeland and its territorial integrity.
à la défense de la patrie.
A top government official described the event as a rare and historic transformation in Togo's political evolution.
We are living through a remarkable time in our country's history. In Togo's history, the change of republic, as we are at the fifth one, has been quite rare. Having the chance, even the grace, to experience this transition to the Fifth Republic with the swearing in of the first council president in our country is a remarkable moment for each of us and for our compatriots.
While government officials hail the shift as a democratic milestone, critics argue it entrenches the ruling elite and sidelines electoral accountability, signalling a power structure still centred around Gnassingbé.
Blacksmiths in Sudan's capital are finding work in a surprising way, welding shut deserted homes. With parts of Khartoum under army control, many houses are left empty and at risk of looting. Residents who fled the war are now hiring local welders to protect what's left behind.
In Khartoum, blacksmiths like Ibrahim Al-Khalil are sealing abandoned homes to stop looters, responding to calls from Sudanese abroad using messaging apps. The ongoing war between the army and the RSF has displaced millions, leaving entire neighbourhoods deserted. As the army regains territory, many fear renewed looting, despite past allegations also targeting soldiers. Local wielders say the unexpected demand has given them a new way to earn after years without work.
When the army entered Khartoum, a week after, we started doing this job. Someone would call us and tell us they have a house somewhere, so we go to close it up. You go to see it and reach an agreement with him. We start closing up the house. For example, up until this moment, we worked on 10 houses, including this one. It is a livelihood that came from God above, not from people. A lot of people are working. I'm not the only blacksmith. All of these people want to earn a living because lately those people haven't had any work. They don't have the means to work. They cannot work.
Residents say violence and looting still haunt many.
Since Isha prayers, we used to hear the sound of hammers and things breaking. We couldn't ask who was doing this or why. There were 13 armed men with a big truck. They went from one house to another, looting. At 3 or 4 a.m., they would leave a sign to mark where they'd stop, indicating, tomorrow we start from here. So people knew that their turn for looting was the next day.
With no end in sight to Sudan's war, residents and blacksmiths are adapting to survive, finding ways to protect homes even from afar. But fears of looting from any side show how fragile any sense of safety still is.
A South African mother and 2 accomplices have been found guilty of trafficking her 6-year-old daughter. The child, Jocelyn Smith, was reported missing over 2 months ago. The case has raised urgent questions about child protection in the country. The judge also found the accused guilty of kidnapping.
A Western Cape High Court judge has found Kelly Smith, her boyfriend, and another man guilty of kidnapping and trafficking 6-year-old Jocelyn Smith. The girl disappeared in February from her home in Saldanha Bay, and despite the convictions, her whereabouts remain unknown. The case has drawn national attention, with chilling testimony that Jocelyn may have been sold to a traditional healer for just over $1,000 US. The judge convicted the 3 on multiple charges.
On count 1, you are guilty of a contravention of Section 4.1 of the Act, read with the other legislation on trafficking. You are also convicted of kidnapping.
Jocelyn's grandmother says she just wants the return of her missing granddaughter.
I don't know where my grandchild is. I just want my grandchild back. So there's nothing else. I just want my grandchild back. It doesn't matter how long they are going to sit in jail, but my grandchild is still gone.
Police officials say the investigation into Jocelyn's disappearance is still ongoing, despite the trafficking convictions.
The only problem that we still have is that Jocelyn is nowhere to be found. We have not closed that part of the investigation of the missing person, but we're happy with what has been articulated today by the judge.
The court's decision brings a measure of justice, but Jocelyn Smith's fate remains unknown. As sentencing looms, authorities continue the search for the missing child, while her family holds out hope for answers.
Well, that's all we have today on Africa News. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to A News.